Okay, it is now officially afternoon, 12:02. Welcome. My name is Terry Oropeza, and I am the president of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of HDI. And I hope you enjoyed your lunch. It looks really good. I haven't eaten mine yet. Today's agenda, we're getting started right now with a few announcements, and then we will launch right into our panel and discussion. Please do fill out the survey. We really value your feedback on our programs. It helps us to plan our future programs. In fact, this program was a result of feedback we have gotten from our surveys. So there's our QR code if you have your phone handy. I will also be sending out a follow-up email which will include some of the slides, and we are recording the session today, and we will QA it, but hopefully it will all be good, and you'll get a copy of that as well. I really want to thank Autodesk for for coming to us and saying they wanted to do a meeting here in this fabulous place. And both Sheryl and Queen will say a few more words about Autodesk, and so I'll let them. And Sheryl has been wonderful to work with. Thank you so much. San Francisco HDI, this is the board of directors. I'm president. We have a few of our officers here as well. Brent Hansen, since she's sitting right here in the front, I'll have her wave to the crowd. She's also one of our panelists. Rob Matheson is our co-VP of programs, along with Hillary Hernandez, co-VP of programs. And those are all the officers we have with us today. Elections are coming up, so if you've ever thought about getting more involved, this is a good time to step up and raise your hand. We have a number of ways you can get involved, both with just helping plan programs, but also in our leadership team or on the board of directors itself. We do have one opening that's going to be coming up in the next elections, and that is a VP of vendor sponsorship, because Josh Furr is going to step into a different role. So if you want to talk more about that, just tap me on the shoulder. We're coming into our award season, and every year we have local awards. We honor our Analyst of the Year and Desktop Support Technician of the Year, and then those award winners go to regional and then national competitions. These are the folks that recently in April were honored as the national winners for Analyst of the Year, Desktop Support Manager of the Year, and Officer of the Year, as well as a Team Excellence Award. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these awards to recognize excellence in your own teams. Nominating somebody for Analyst of the Year and Desktop Support Technician of the Year costs you absolutely nothing. You do not have to be a member in order to nominate. The nominations are open now, and they will close at the end of October, and we will have our events reception, our awards reception in early December. So be thinking about this, because a lot of times as a manager, as an IT support manager, which I have been for over 30 years, we don't have money, right, to recognize our people. But you can nominate them for an award, or if you're a large enough organization, such as one of our board members, Karen from Ellie Mae, they do a competition within the company, within each manager vertical, they nominate people, and so they have their own little competition in the company as well to come up with their 1 or 2 nominees for Analyst or Desktop. I want to thank our sponsors for helping to support the chapter. We use the money from our sponsorships to fund lunches. You cannot get a lunch in San Francisco for $10, just in case you didn't know that. So we charge $10 for non-members for our meetings, but our sponsors help to support that. And today we do have with us a couple of our sponsors, Matt from Learnit, wave your hand, Matt from Learnit, and also Doreen from Drive Savers. And thank you so much. Our next chapter meeting will be June the 6th, and we are doing a roundtable event so that we can crowdsource from our peers ideas and solutions to some problems, or just talk about certain things that are near and dear to us. We'll have table leaders at each table, and then that table leader will have an expertise in that topic. They'll talk about it for 15 minutes, and then we'll rotate and we will come together and share some of our ideas. So it's a really good, it'll be a really good meeting to actually get to talk about what we do and what some of our challenges are, and meet other folks, networking, fun, and learning. And then upcoming webinars. If you have an ability to host a meeting, such as Cheryl came to us to host this meeting. Please do contact us. We do have a form also on our website that gives some details about your site. We do need to have a location that holds 35 to 45 people, has internet, and can provide your projector and screen capabilities. HDI does sponsor 2 conferences a year. The general conference, which was just in April, which is always a great conference, and then the Service Management World. This is our first year doing that one, which will be in October. Leadership forums, for those of you that may have been in the profession for a while and you're looking to take your career to the next level, leadership forums are a really excellent program. I participated in leadership forums for many years as the IT manager at Synopsys. It really gives you a chance to dive deeply into topics that are related to service desk or desktop or executive level, healthcare, retail. There are different groups. There actually is a women in tech group that they just started. So this is some of the upcoming forums. They meet 2 or 3 times a year for 3 days and go really deep on topics that the group itself has chosen. HDI also offers training, and so there are some training experiences this year that have already been scheduled where you can go to one place for 1 week and get a whole bunch of different certificates done if you have training on your goals for the year for yourself or your team. And then these are some local trainings, though, that are either in Sacramento, which is our sister chapter, just up the Bay Area there, and then in San Francisco area. The HDI, one of the biggest things HDI does that was very beneficial to me for years is the practices and salaries survey. It gives you a lot of data about what people are doing, what roles are, what people are paying, and just what's trending up, what's trending down. This year they broke it up into smaller surveys over the course of the year, and the current survey, which is the deadline is May 11th, so very shortly here. You can complete it. You actually can get a gift card, and but more importantly, you get access to the information. One thing I did not put in here is that Sacramento, speaking of the sister chapter, has a 1-day conference next week on Thursday. And it's a very reasonably priced 1-day conference that is local, so there's not any big travel or hotels or stuff like that. I'm speaking at it on, on employee training. Keynote speaker is Julie Moore, for those of you that know that name as well. So next Thursday. Excuse me. We do, of course, have all the social media, and please complete our survey. That is the end of my announcements. That's fast enough there. So now I would like to introduce Cheryl Walton from Autodesk, and she will be introducing our panel.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining and accepting our invitation. We are really excited about the turnout. We didn't know what to expect or anticipate. So I want to say thank you for that. We have a really good list of questions in our agenda today. We absolutely want you guys to be a part of that. We're definitely going to answer those questions the best to our ability and hope it helps you in some way. And we definitely want to hear from you guys so you can help us. And before I hand this over to Queen, I just want to say thank you to Mirza, because he introduced me to HDI, and that is setting me up for success. So thank you so much, Mirza, for that. Thank you for Prakash, because I didn't expect you to be here because you're so busy. So we appreciate that. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Queen. She's going to introduce the panel, and we can get started.
Welcome to Autodesk. I see some faces in the room and I see men in the room. So I'm glad to see some men in here, even though the theme is women in tech. We need allies, we need buddies, and we need partners, because we can't do this alone. And like Sheryl said, we have a fun day. It's going to be very interactive and engaging. We have some amazing panelists that will be sharing their personal stories and experiences. And I want you also to start thinking about questions that you would like them to answer. And if you have something that you would like to add, feel free to chime in. The amazing Alati has offered to be our runner, so she's right here when we open it up to the audience for questions and answers. She will be our runner today. By a show of hands, who has heard of Autodesk or been to this space before? The next question is AutoCAD. Have you heard of AutoCAD? When I go on campus and talk about Autodesk, they say, Autodesk, what's that? But when I say AutoCAD, of course I know AutoCAD. I used AutoCAD years ago. So we are a software company and we make software for people to make anything. As far back as 2 CEOs ago, they used to say that if God did not make it, our product did. And it's true, from the buildings to the bridges and the cars that we drive, our design and products were used in all of the spaces. And the 3 main areas we cover is M&E, AEC, architecture, engineering and design, and manufacturing. So think about it this way. If you want to search for information, where do you go to? You go to Google, most likely. If you want to buy something and you're like me, lastminute.com, I go to Amazon to order my toothpaste for the next morning, right? And if you want to make something, where do you go? You go to Autodesk, now you know. So when we give you the power to make anything. And this gallery is a beautiful space where we showcase the amazing work that our customers are doing using our software product. If I told you what we do without you coming here, sometimes it may not make sense. But when you walk into this gallery, to me, it's a recruiting tool because it's a wow moment. And what I hear at the end of the tour is, I had no idea. And I think we should have that trademarked. I had no idea. So with that, welcome to Autodesk, and I will have our panelists each introduce themselves and we can get started. Cheryl Walton, Rachel O'Gorman, Natalie Polanco, Janice Inc., and Brent Hansen. I was in Egypt when Sheryl reached out to me to say, Queen, we have a great event coming up and I would like you to moderate the panel. And I said, what's the theme? And she answered, women in tech. I'm like, sure, I will go for it. The reason is because it's time to change the narratives. We've been talking about this for so long, and what many people don't realize is that women, we are the world's first programmers. So at what point did that change? Back in the 80s, the graph went all the way up. In 90s and 2000s, it came down. And the theory that is attached to that is because when the PC came out, it was mostly marketed to men and boys through games. And we're here today to change that narratives and hoping that what they say and when they share their experiences, we can all take away something from that to make us better in what we do. And at the end of that, I'll have a call to action for everyone in the room that I'll be happy to share. So to get started, our first question is, can you share with us how you started in tech and what experiences led you to that? And this is for everyone.
Hello, everybody can hear me? My name is Natalie. I work for a company called Lanlogic. I've been a sysadmin for about 20 years. Various companies all over the Bay, also doing consulting. And how did I get started in tech? I was a very inquisitive person when I was younger, loved to build, take apart things. My parents were not such a fan of that because many things would be broken and look like they're put together, but not. But these early, I think, experiences in engineering is what I would call it, introduced me to troubleshooting. And I love figuring out how things work and understanding how to get them back to a working state once I have broken them or somebody else has. And I think those things are the foundation for what made me get into this field. You know, one other driving factor, I'm not gonna lie, you know, back, 20 years ago was I was really young, not knowing what to do, but knew I loved to put things together and build things. And the tech industry was booming back then. And I knew I could make a lot of money doing it as well. So financial independence was a huge driver for me as well. So
I'm Brent Hansen. I've been with Exchange Bank in Santa Rosa for 25 years. Technology kind of fell in my lap. I've been in banking since 1988, And about 15 years ago, the company came to me and said, you know, we'd really like to have a help desk. Go and create it. I had no idea what that meant. We'd never had a help desk at the company before. So I heard about this organization, HDI, and joined them and learned probably the most important part of our skill set, and that's the soft skills. Can you write? Can you talk to somebody? Can you carry on a great conversation? You know, what does your documentation look like in the knowledge base? That's what I hire on. So that's been really important to me. Technology, and from what I've learned through HDI, has been really good to me. So going from a supervisor in the branch where, you know, everything was, I had a tremendous amount of responsibility because I'm playing with your money. I got to make really good decisions, to coming to the help desk. And it turned out that it was decided that I was going to be the super help desk, which is a little different than most help desks because I never said the word no. So whatever was going on in the company, we took it on. We had a security officer who went out on a health issue. We took on bank security. So imagine that. My help desk is taking a technical call. Then we're taking an operational call. Then there's a robbery. We take those calls. We have everything organized. We have a book that we answer the questions and go down the list, but it made the job never boring. And as of 2 weeks ago, we are a technical help desk. So we don't do all of the other crazy things. We did keep bank security, but so technology solely is now my going forth. It's going to be an interesting ride.
I'll go next. Is this on? Yeah. My name is Rachel Gorman and I work at Autodesk. I'm probably the one with the most computer experience here, and so some people at Autodesk will learn more about me today than they ever knew. I grew up in Ireland and I was always curious, very much like yourself. I wanted to explore and look at things all the time. If my mother was looking at me and turned away, I was gone. I was out there exploring and looking for things. And I think that's the character you have to have when you're in technology. Go out there and explore. I got into technology through what was then at the time called word processing. And if you don't remember the disks that used to be 8 inches big, that's where I started. I was very curious, how could I make that work really well? Very similar to yourself. How could I make it better? And once I finished that, I was known for being able to do all that. I moved into mini computers because, like yourself, I was the only one who knew what to do. So give it to Rachel, she'll do it. Probably 30 years ago, I came over to the US, and that was a huge change for me because the technology in Ireland was older, and I had a great opportunity here to learn a lot more. I think part of why I got into technology was I liked people, and I believed in people, and being able to work with people and fix their problems was something that I really enjoyed. So that's how I got into technology.
Hi, I'm Janice. I am a product designer, an author, and also an activist for gender equality. Technology wasn't my intentional, like at first. I came to technology through arts. So when I was younger, we didn't have a lot, but we have used toilet paper roll, we have used plastic bags, we have elastic bands. So I got really good at craftsmanship and ended up to pursue an artistic pathway through high school. And at that time, I was really interested in fashion and food magazine, and I want to have a job in, doing layouts for magazines. And turned out that called graphic design. So I came all the way from Hong Kong to California College of the Arts to pursue my BFA graphic design degree. I soon learned about coding, which I found really interesting. And I do more web design and app, and also got intern opportunity as a UX UI designer. And I fell in love with technology. Technology allows like a quick feedback loop. So I do design, I interview users, I then bring some ideas, I do more design, then talk to engineering team to build that and ship it and get more feedback. So yeah, that's how I got in.
I just wanted to make sure. So my name is Cheryl Walton. I have always loved math and science. Growing up, I would always get ridiculed or was called a geek at a young age because I didn't care about history and I didn't care about anything else. It was always about the future. So when I finished high school, I graduated with honors from my high school and I went to college. At a young age, I wanted to be a programmer because I thought that would be the best way to understand how the Nintendo games work and I can do Zelda on my own. But it was very boring to me. So my first job was at Honeywell. And at that time, back in the 80s, it was called Industrial Automation and Controls Division. I worked on the team that actually designed and created the cockpits for the Boeing 737s, 47s, and the Stretch 1011. So as I grew in my experience and knowledge, I kept wanting to grow more. So I left Honeywell and then I went to Thomas Lighting Group, their engineering company, where I first heard about AutoCAD. They used AutoCAD to create their trapeze lighting, their floodlights, and everything else. And there I was introduced to the Commodore computer. So that's where I changed in terms of technology and the direction that I would like to go, because I was more interested in how the applications were working on the machine that was allowing me to share the information, although old and a dinosaur now. But that's how I jumped the fence and went over to the side of me actually helping people. So I left them and I went to, I believe it was Tesoro, and I worked for them for a long period of time, and I was a part of the asset management. So I was able to determine which applications and softwares we were going to pay for and those that I tried to get free so that we could use them in our services, because we did not have a help desk like we have today. And as I'm growing in my profession and the things that I think mean the most to me and those avenues that I could use to give back, I left Texas and I came to California. I did not have a job. I didn't want to transfer to the company. And I just thought, you know what? I have all this experience. There's a lot of tech companies here. I'm going to just go to Autodesk because I know they created AutoCAD. I hadn't come to the gallery. I wasn't expecting to get the job, but I did. Now I'm here and I've been set up for success the entire time that I got here. So I just have to say that I believe I am the one that created my destiny and the direction that I wanted to go, because I methodically picked and chose the companies that I thought would help leverage my success. So that's where I am today.
Really amazing stories and intros. So I'm hearing the theme here is curiosity, being curious, and also taking your destiny in your own hands as well. And another thing that I heard from you is that you looked around and they said to you, Bren, this is for you, to go create a help desk, and it wasn't there. So my next question is, how do you take out that imposter syndrome? How do you deal with that? Am I good enough to sit at the table? That's one of the questions that come up a lot, where you find yourself in this space and you're leading teams, men and women. How do you deal with that?
Well, for me, I stuck my foot in the door. When you're creating a department that nobody's heard of, nobody knows if they should work with you, if they want to work with you, and you have ideas that you know are going to help the company, as I would find meetings going on, because all of our meetings are on our public calendars, I would go into the room, sit down, and people look at me like, well, why are you here? Well, I have something to share with you. And what I have to share is going to help you do your project, whatever it was that you were looking to do. And at first, they were a little put off, like I'm going into their space. But then they started to realize that if they didn't connect with the help desk, that there was things that they were missing when there was issues with a project being implemented. If they didn't keep the help desk informed, as the calls would come in, I would send them right back to the project manager. Well, if you're not going to keep us informed, how are we supposed to help you? So then they realized that, oh, well, hey, maybe we need to have her come to the meetings so that her and her team can help us with these things. So eventually I got on the IT steering committee and got on the project meetings and have been invited to these other meetings, and the respect started coming in. They make sure that they keep the help desk informed, and we make sure that we help them make their projects successful.
The pain point. You made them realize that there's a pain point here and they need you to get their job done, and you persevered.
Absolutely.
And also made sure they saw the value in it. because it's another thing for them to understand the value and why they need to invite you and let you be in the room. Good one.
I would like to have like a quick story of mine right here. So growing up in Hong Kong, I was always told that women should not be smart because men doesn't like it. And for more than 20 years of my life, all my worldview, my beliefs, my values are constructed by what I perceive to be true. Women are meant to serve male. And I came, I'm privileged enough to come across the ocean to come here to study. I learned all the ideas of feminism or gender equality. I think the main point is women should stop telling themselves that they're not good enough, they can't or they won't. Even though they are just words, they have heavy meaning. So if you have a strong voice, if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you believe in what you're doing, then you just go for it. Just tell yourself you can, you will, and you're good enough.
I like what you just said about even though they're just words, they have a strong impact on us. So to be aware of that and just keep going and put up our walls and just block that. Thank you for sharing that.
I think right in that same vein is having self-confidence. And once you have gained the knowledge and the experience, first off, get as much experience as you can get. But once you have that, you have to have faith in yourself and what you're capable of accomplishing. And no matter what anybody says or questions, I've had lots of questions, if they're calling me for help or they're calling the help desk back when I first started, they would not want my help, but can I wait on the phone for a man? And that was disheartening at first. And mind you, this was a good 15, 20 years ago. But that just shook me. I was so surprised somebody would do that. So it's really about not letting people's idea of what you are capable of accomplishing ever stand in your way from what you're capable of doing.
There's definitely lots of anecdotal stories. When I did come to the States, I worked for a company called Virtual Microsystems. Virtual seems to be in my life these days. And I traveled 50% of the time. I was installing both hardware and software in places like universities and libraries and hospitals. It was the first sort of DVDs that you could get in those days, and we networked it. So we were like a network service at the time, which was a stretch of the imagination. But many of the offices I went into were all run by managers that were male. And I've been in places where I'd walk in the door, the guy would look at me, the manager, and look behind me and say, "Where's the engineer?" That happened like 25, 30 years ago. But even recently at a conference I went to, I was sitting beside a colleague where he was giving a session and I was giving a session. And another person sat down with us, a gentleman, and turned to my colleague and said, "Okay, so what session are you giving?" He told him and then went on with the conversation. So it's actually, we're asking men to be aware of their behavior as well when you're talking about us and what we're doing. It's the small things that make a big difference. And once we get those changes made, the bigger changes will happen. But it is confidence. You have to know your capabilities, know your data, have your knowledge. Once you know what you can do, you can stand up there with the best of them. And you deserve a place at the table. It's yours.
Absolutely. And use your voice. I mean, if you're confident, you have to voice your opinion. Tell people when something for sure is going to work one way, even though they're fighting you on it. You just have to have that confidence and not back down. Use your voice.
But Rachel, to your point, it's a shame that in 2018, it's still happening. They asked the man and then you were neglected.
Yes, and I think it's asking people to be aware.
The narratives has to change and we have to do it in partnership with our allies. And to the next question, it's tied to confidence. Do I have to act like a man to be successful in the tech space?
So I'd like to take the first stab at this one. My answer is no. And I've thought about this question probably for 2 weeks. So every time I would have another thought, I would just jot it down so that I wouldn't forget. So we shouldn't act like a man, and we shouldn't have to, and nor do we have to be mad that we're not men. We can't be chameleons or want to be like the men, because we bring something very unique to the table when we are sitting amongst those men. As women, we are prone to challenge the status quo. So of course, we'll ask the most questions and get the least amount of answers. So we'll have to keep asking those questions. But in my career, I've learned to neatly, and I say neatly, big, push back as to not scar the male ego sitting at that table. Because it's you have to just be mindful of what you say, but in the same token, you also have to be very strong, very diligent, and be passionate about your ideas and the things that you want to get across to those that are sitting with you at the table, because oftentimes they will talk over you, and they will talk at you, and they will not talk to you. So I remind myself all the time that I'm outnumbered, but I'm also in a constant state of learning. I'm learning how to adjust to that, because I am fearless. And it doesn't bother me one bit to say that. I am totally comfortable with being at that table. And I think all women should feel very comfortable, and don't ever think that you have to act like a man, because we need to lift each other up. We need to empower each other, and we need to share our experiences with each other, so that we don't feel like we're being left out or sitting out on an island when we're amongst our peers and they just happen to be male. So in saying that, I just want to say, believing in who we are and recognizing all of the contributions that we make will forever make a difference in what we're doing sitting amongst the men at that table.
And Cheryl, I'm looking at you because we talked about this before. We don't have to act like men to be successful. Keep in mind and always remind yourselves that the world's first programmers were women. And not to toot our own horns, we make shit happen. Like women, we got it. We fix problems. We are multitaskers. We are the ones that the devil is in the detail. And we think about all of that. We're not just high level and like overview. We go in the weeds of things. So when you know that you have value to add, use your voice and make sure they listen. Command the space and ask them to stop, pause, and listen, because I have something that would help you get to the next step. Brent, to your point, ask and persevere. So thank you for sharing that story. Anyone want to add something else?
Well, I've been around probably longer than most people in technology, and I've had the most experience. But you also don't have to be aggressive. I mean, you can be very assertive. And I think sometimes that gets mixed up, being aggressive as opposed to assertive. And you can assert yourself when you're sitting at a table. And it doesn't make you any less a woman, it doesn't make you any less a capable person, but you can stand for the things that you know are your opinions and the right way to do things.
Absolutely. And speaking about being in the space for a long time, can you share your experiences and some of your biggest challenges and biggest learnings being in the technology space for a minute that we can all take away from this?
This question, because it's so I am very passionate about what I do, and I have been told consistently that I get emotionally hijacked. So I have to say that I believe that because I am emotional about those beliefs and the right things to do and the right people to engage, that's my passion. So what I have done with that is I have leveraged that. The minute I hear it, I just think, okay, then I just need to go and find someone else that is going to help me transition to a more delicate approach to my ask. Because I do get excited, I get anxious, especially when I want things to happen, because I work by a sense of urgency. Everything has to be done right now and today. It cannot wait, and it's always urgent. So I take my passion and I try to channel that to help others, but just as quickly and swiftly as possible. But I used to have a problem with that. I'm like, emotionally hijacked? Really? I'm just trying to get the job done. But it really is true. And you just have to figure out a way to be able to channel that into the right things in the positive ways and productive ways. But I do appreciate that, because I think that's really good feedback from a personal perspective?
I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen is getting my male counterparts to understand that I'm not emotional, although that can happen, but that I am passionate, because no matter what happens, sometimes as women, our emotions just are on our sleeve and they're coming out whether we want them to or not. Whether you're mad, happy, angry, whatever it is, they just come out. The Kleenex is nearby, you're desperately trying to keep it together, and you're passionate about something, but they almost always read it as emotional and they hijack you, and it's so frustrating. So for our counterparts who are here today, please take a moment and listen to your female counterparts. We may show our emotions, but we are very passionate about what we're talking about. And when you're talking about successes, one of my favorite things, I've had my help desk for 15 years now, and I've had 10 employees or less in that 15 years. So for the most part, when they've come, they've stayed. But what I've been very successful at is mentoring. And I have successfully mentored 5, so half of my team, into higher positions, because I'm listening to them. I am passionate about making that happen for them. It took me a long time, because my first team was with me for 6 years, to realize that, oh no, I'm first level. My job is to grow my team. Once I caught on to that, watching them grow and be successful and moving up and on, sometimes to different companies, but more often within our company, that just fueled my soul. To me, that's it. I'm pushing my way towards retirement. I can't wait to get there. And my goal is to have 10. I want 10 people that I have mentored before I retired into higher positions. That is probably the best notch in my belt and one of my biggest successes.
And Brent, that's a good segue into the next question, is how do we get more women into leadership positions and senior level executive positions? Because it's one thing to get into the funnel and get into the organization, but how do you climb up? Which one you mentioned is mentorship. Does anyone have something else to add or you want to share about how we can support other women to get to the next level?
I think mentorship is key. That's all. I think mentorship is key, but I also think that as women and as leaders, it is our responsibility to close that gap and to help those that's coming behind us, even if we do not get to the level that we believe we deserve. It's our duty to make sure that the one behind us does. I just think it's very important, because you don't see it happen very quickly. And sometimes it doesn't happen enough, but there's always a way. And just don't ever give up. You just have to keep trying. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to have to retire. It's either retire or I'm going to be at the top, one or the other. So you can't give up. You absolutely have to keep trying.
Those are good goals. Natalie, do you have anything to add to it?
You know, I was sitting here thinking about a conversation my coworker and I just had, and we were talking about, there was a group of people he was helping interview for a client of ours, and there was one woman out of the group. And he felt, after speaking with everybody, that she was the most qualified, and that was his choice. But at the end of the day, she still did not get hired. And he's not sure why. I mean, who really knows? I think it goes back to that confidence. It may not be, you might not get the specific job that you want, but you have to keep going. Don't let anybody deter you from getting to where you want to be. I mean, I would love to say, you know, it takes a community to help bring us all up, right? But there's a certain level of self-responsibility and push. You've got to keep going no matter what any of them say.
So push, self-responsibility, and persevering. And I would also like to add to the men in the room, advocate for women, hire women, sponsor women, and mentor women. It's not just woman to woman when they talk about mentorship and being a sponsor. Be advocates, their partners, speak up for them. When you see a gap, especially in pay, that's equal pay, there's a gap there. Year after year, we try to bridge that gap, but we are not there quite yet. So we need men to advocate for us, to speak up for us when you see things are not going right. So with that,
Sorry, I'd love to add one note here. This is based on research. If a man or a woman agree with another woman during a meeting, just nodding or saying, yes, I agree, that will increase people listening to what the woman just said. So for men and women right here, please support, the ideas of your coworkers is bringing to the table.
So call to action to all men. Whenever a woman speaks at a meeting, what do? You nod. And you nod with a smile. I would agree with you. And to wrap things up, one last question before I open it up to the audience. What advice would you give to a young woman coming into the space? We've talked about using your voice, speaking up, being confident, curious, ask questions, and partners and allies. In addition to all of these things we've covered today, what last piece of statement do you want to leave with someone in the room that is looking to get to the next step?
Maybe I can make one comment. I feel very passionate about this. I feel that I have the right to be at the table. So believe you have the right to be there and don't question it. Once you start being there and turning up all the time, I think you get the trust. The trust gets built between you and the rest of the team. I'm also very passionate about what you're talking about, making people the best people they can be. And if you do that, you'll succeed.
Cool. So speaking of young women, I graduated last year, so I'm relatively young and I'm on the panel, so I'm pretty proud of myself right now. So I pivoted my career from graphic design, which is heavily based on print, to product design, which is more technology side. Along the way, I always feel like I'm not good enough. I haven't had like the formal education for it. But it has been stories from my friends and role models along the way that reminds me this is my passion, we ensure that I belong here and empower me to stay. So I see my friends in my age can do it, and I feel like I can do it. Women have so much self-doubt, just along the way on themselves. So find your role model that or dear friends that support you along the way, and also be the good friend that shows support to your friends, especially for women and minorities.
So my last statement would be for the women to continually mentally promoting themselves, because with that type of mindset, it does change your behaviors, because it absolutely changed minds. A woman's impact is strengthened and it improves her ability to get that seat at the table. So for women, we can't allow ourselves to be motivated by fear, and we have to take those leaps and bounds to get those rewards. Those rewards and benefits comes from that extra leap that we take every day. So I would have to say your confidence, your openness, and your ability to speak intelligently and present your ideas will definitely be a good place to start.
Well, one of the things I did besides sticking my foot in the door is because I hadn't had training in the technology field. I definitely knew my soft skills, which is why they asked me to create the help desk, but how was I going to get there? This is going to surprise some of my friends here, but I was silent. I listened. I listened to my male counterparts. How did they work together? What were the keywords? What were the things that bothered them the most? What were the things that they would listen to? And I started infiltrating those conversations. So if I say this is going to shut them down, they won't listen to me anymore. But if I say this, we're going to have a conversation. Then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen. But taking those listening skills and turning them into being able to talk helped move me up. When it was time, I came in as an operations manager. It didn't look like I was going to go any further. Well, I felt that I deserved to be going further. So I wrote my job description. I presented it to my boss. This is who I think I am. This is where I think I need to be. Can we go to HR and get this mapped out and figured out? And they did. And that's where I got to be. So last few years, I've been working my way up. I want a title. Let's go. And that's what we're working on next. You have to make your own path. But I think what you said about having a mentor, so important. You need to have somebody that you can call and you can ask questions of. And that's what I learned from HDI. I've had many people in my life that I've been able to talk to them, male and female, and just help me grow as a person. So I want to offer that to anybody here. Hopefully you'll see me after this. I'd love to help you get where you want to go. And I'm sure that's probably true for all of us on the panel. We want to be there for you. We want to help mentor you. You know, a quick phone call can work wonders.
Just one simple conversation.
Yep.
And closing from you?
So as far as advice, I mean, we've already discussed the confidence and knowing your value, using your voice. These are all such important things. But knowing you deserve a place here. And as far as my position is concerned, in the sysadmin field, it is such a wide field, and there are so many different things you could be doing. Find what you like the best and become an expert at it. And know your worth, know the knowledge, trust your knowledge, and speak up when you have information to provide.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And for me, I'm going to add building your own village, your space and your network. It takes a village to get to the next step. And personally, every job I've had in the last 9 years has been a product of someone hearing about it or someone within my network. The power of networking, it's priceless. Having that core village and people that are like-minded and really believe in you and trust you, it goes from, oh, Queen is interested in this. You talk about it, they know someone that knows someone. I'm in a new role as the manager of diversity alliances and partnerships, and this is my 6th week in this role. But I have a village of supportive, amazing women and men that are helping me get to the next step. When I have a question or a challenge, I go to them. They know someone that could support or help in that area. So thinking about being intentional about your space and the people you keep around you to help you get to the next step. And the power of mentorship, it's really amazing. And personal story, last year I had a mentor officially. When we sat down and she said, Queen, stop and pause. Think about where you see yourself a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm like, wait, what? I've never had to do that because I'm very reactive. We're constantly trying to meet goals and get to the next step without stopping and thinking about a long-term map of where you see yourself a year from now, 2 and 3. So finding a mentor that is doing what you're doing or something you admire about them and working with them is really key. With that, I would like to open up this to the audience. If you have any burning questions, things you've heard from our amazing panelists that you'd like them to touch on, feel free to do that. And we have Alati here, who is our runner.
Hello, everybody. I have a question for Sheryl and maybe Rachel. When you get mad at those situations, how you deal with it? Because I get mad. So like, how do you deal with with those guys or whatever?
We all get mad.
So I have a mentor, and we were in San Rafael together, and I really didn't get to connect with her often, but whenever I had a problem, even then I would get angry or upset. Tracy would tell me the best way to deal with that. I felt very shut off because when I got to Autodesk, we're outnumbered. And I've always worked with a lot of males, but I hadn't worked with that many before. So I always go back to the things that she would tell me initially, and that was just, think about it, think about what the outcome would be, how would you want to address it, what would you say if? And I always think about that, Tracy, and that was 5 years ago. And thank you so very much, because I do have those moments, and I absolutely have to talk to myself because I can't find her half the time.
So we all need a Tracy.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
So one of the other things you can realize is that when you do get upset, it changes your brain chemistry. And your brain goes from its logical thinking process to its emotional process. So what I do is, if I get to that point, I go walk around the block. Let your brain calm down, let your logical brain come back into process all the things, and then discuss the problem or the issue with the person.
And for me, I have a sounding board, who is my teammate Arzu right here in the back. When I go to her and I just cuss, I'm like, Arzu, right now, and I'm really mad. So my ladder of inference, I go from here and she brings me down to here. So it's good to have a sounding board.
Mentoring, it's because of the mentorship Because of the mentorship that I received from Tracy, I immediately started mentoring others internally and externally. It is a very powerful tool. You may think that you know everything and you may think that you have all the answers, but there's always someone else that can walk you off that ledge, that can have you dial it back and make you look at it realistically and not so much emotionally. So mentorship is very, very important. It's just powerful.
I got interrupted in meetings a lot before with a lot of males in the room. I can only speak for designers because I am a product designer. So what I figured out, I was so mad, I was so pissed, like why does this keep happening? Why can I just cannot speak up because that man just have a very strong voice in the room. So what I figured out is to do more research. So when I have fact to prove my points, everyone just listen. This is how I got everyone start, really listening to me, is do a lot of research based on, say my ideas based on fact and, truth.
Thank you for sharing that. Was that helpful? Did they answer your questions? Thank you. There was a hand right here in the back.
A question really for everyone on the panel. I have a niece who just recently graduated from college. She's a web designer. She's grossly underpaid, and she has very little confidence, has a hard time looking people in the eye. I want to talk to her. I haven't talked to her about it. I'm going to see her in about a month, and I just see an incredible amount of difference between her and her younger sister, who all the way here from Eastern Canada and worked for a startup in San Francisco. And I just want to shake this kid and go, you're smart, you're way underpaid in the company you're currently in. Get out of your parents' house and go do something. But it's what do you tell like a really bright young woman? She's 25, 26, went to a great school, great technology skills, and grossly underpaid, needs to leave the company she's at. How does she get that confidence? She can't look you in the face and have a conversation with you.
I would love to talk to her and connect with her. Because I am younger than her, yeah. And I am doing what I believe in what I'm doing right now. And I love what I'm doing in products, which is about app and web design.
She wants to leave Ottawa. She wants to come here to San Francisco, so maybe we'll get you two connected.
That would be great. And something I would like to add, to invite her or share with her resources about networking opportunities, where she can see. There's one thing to see. You come to an event like this and you hear from other women what they're doing. That might excite her, that might motivate her, and she can hear about different positions and titles, and she can now go back and look at it to see how much are they paying in this area. Because sometimes coming from a family member, it's really delicate. You don't know when to cross that line. So inviting her into an opportunity or a space where she can actually see other people doing other stuff, that leaves a long-lasting impression on younger kids like that. Any other question in the room?
Thank you. This is for anyone that would like to answer, but as everyone grows, and females in particularly in their career, they get into management positions and start to manage men and women, maybe that they were peers before, and then they go into a management position, and sometimes we can second guess our abilities or get insecure in some of those roles. So how do you go about managing some of the men that might be challenging for you?
So I manage almost all males, and I don't act one way or the other with them. I draw the line the moment that we discuss when I am going to manage you, what my position is. And my position is the company first, and the personal is after that. There is no difference. I'm not any harder or less communicative with the males or the females, because I believe that we're all here to perform a service. So I believe as long as you keep a level head and you don't differentiate between the male, female, personal, professional, it would be easy, but you have to draw that line right up front. You can't, it's very difficult to manage a friend. And if you do ever have to manage a friend, you need to have that conversation the moment you become that manager. Here's where I stand. This is my position.
I was going to second that. I set my expectations. So I just got the PC techs to start reporting to me. And they do a whole bunch of things. I have no idea what they're doing, nor do I expect to know everything that they're doing. What I expect, I lay out for them. Welcome to my team. Here's what I want from you. You need to come into work every day on time. I expect you to act like a grown-up because I don't want to babysit. And here's the projects that we're working on. And I expect you to check in with me. We meet once a week, but I set my expectations for them. And my job as the manager is not their job as the PC tech. I do something completely different. And they need to respect that, and they do. They come to me when I need them to. Like I said, we have the check-in meetings, but that line is drawn. And as long as we have that understanding, we're going to work well together, especially that adult part. As long as they're grown-ups and I don't have to babysit, it's great. But when I start having to do that, I have to remind them.
I've been through that twice, where I've had peers that I have become their manager in the past. And the best thing you can do is remember that you were friends, sit down at a table and say, this is going to change things. This isn't going to be the same as it was before. Absolutely, we can remain friends and we go out for drinks later and things like that. But it's a difference, and you have to speak directly and say, there are things I'm going to be able to talk with you about, and there are going to be some things I can't. Whereas in the past, as a peer-to-peer, you'd have that little rumor conversation going around. So you have to be prepared to step back from that yourself.
And I'm going to disagree with Rachel on just that one little part. Once I had been a peer and became a manager, I did stop doing the friendship thing. One time I went out to drinks with the team, most awkward thing I'd ever done, because they were all starting to talk about work and then starting to talk about projects and tickets. Like, time to go. Yeah, I stopped after that.
And it depends on your team, I guess.
This is true.
Rachel, I was going to ask you where the person you spoke to, were he or she receptive to that conversation, saying we were friends and peers before, but now things are going to change? How did they take that?
I think they took it okay.
Okay.
There was no pushback, but I think they definitely had a couple of moments of thinking, this is different.
Yeah, hi, mine's more of a comment than a question, I guess. You'd mentioned the whole acknowledging a woman's contribution to her team. I firmly agree with that, right? As a man, I attempt to stay aware. I'm not always aware. I'm aware of that. But I'm aware sometimes that I slip off and I'm unaware. But at the same time, I do try to acknowledge and stay open to the contributions of all of my team members, right? Regardless, male, female, otherwise, but especially female, because of these issues that we've all talked about today, right? So there's a little bit what I'll call a hyper awareness, just to check in. Because what I will say has been my experience has been that there are voices that aren't heard. And I think those voices, or they're spoken, but they're spoken a bit too softly in my view. And I know that this has been said before by men. But it's one thing I kind of bring it back to what the power of a woman is in a man's life, period, right? So in my life's experience and those of most men I've ever met throughout my life, women have always been a central presence in their life, a powerful presence. And I think that I just invite all women who work with me, around me, all the ones that I meet throughout, things like this, to never forget that you are a power within the universe, and that voice, even though there's a louder voice out there, that voice, I've been completely stalled and stopped by the softest of voices in my life, right? Because when I'm done thundering, someone says, that's interesting, Marcus. May I add something? Or can I correct you on a point? And it's a tone that may be so soft, but I just am humbled for it at that point. So just don't ever forget that power that you carry. Bring it forth, like you said, confidence and all of that. And know that men out there are hearing you, right? We may act like we don't sometimes, and sometimes we're completely oblivious, but sometimes we're just simply afraid of the power you carry. And that's just real. So
Thanks for the reminder. Thank you. Last two questions before we wrap up. Any burning question or comment?
So I've been hearing a lot about like all the roles that you have taken before, but I just wanted to ask for what will be your advice or your opinion around breaking the stereotypes about the roles that women should be taking around tech. The usual mentality is that we take softer roles like HR and not engineering technical roles because those are roles that the boys are sitting at the table doing. So what will be your advice to break that stereotype?
No, you have a seat at any table that you're going to sit at. That you can be, it doesn't have to be HR, that there are plenty, even though we don't have all the examples. For instance, when I went to school for systems administration, my graduating class was 79 people and I was the only woman. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't belong there, because you can be anything you want to be. That you just have to remind yourself. I know sometimes it gets a little hard, especially when you look around and there's nobody that looks like you, but you got to keep pushing. Just keep pushing.
To add to that, there's a research that also shows that women go into STEM, but they don't stay in STEM. Why? Because they feel like they don't belong in STEM. But the power of mentorship, again, and role modeling, going around and telling people and advocating for yourself what you do and sharing that would also help the younger generation see that there's a seat for them at the table. They belong here. Someone has done it. I can do it. Yes, so to be able to show and for people to see and hear is really important as well, to break that stereotype.
I talk about how my dad would tell me women should not be smart because men doesn't like it. It struggles. Like I feel like I was so frustrated. I feel so limited. I feel like I'm like I don't know what is happening. No one ever talk about technology with me. It is like this boy's job. So after years of, being here, and I realized all the stuff that, we are targeted to be told in a certain way, we should act in a certain way. And I'm trying to insert like a small book pitch right here. So I wrote a book called How to Be a Good Girl. It is a children's book that inspires young girls to challenge gender stereotypes. So it started off with all the pink pages of stereotype. For example, you should be a cute little princess, but when you open up the page, it's the alternative of the gender stereotype. You're smart and strong, you're the hero of your story. There are guiding questions for parents and kids to talk about, and there are parenting tips for parents to keep in mind. You flip the page to the back, so at the end, the book will turn from all the stereotypes of what a good girl should be to all the possibility of what a good girl can be. And for the last 2 pages are interactive. You should make other people happy, but instead, what makes you happy? And for the last page is for parents and kids to make a promise, for parents to embrace their kids for who they are, and kids to be true to themselves. I'm extremely passionate about helping kids all around the world to overcome the struggles that I have been through for all the years about stereotypes, about what a woman should or should not do. I think at the end of the day, we can do whatever we want to be. And thank you for all women right here for being smart, being strong and brave. It is really hard. I really know. But yes, we can be in STEM, we can be in advertising, we can be in HR. I think like technology is great. I feel like there is a strong need in this realm right now, and there are people would be like pushing their young kids to like, you must learn STEM because we should have more women in STEM. But I think at the end of the day, it really depends on your daughters or like the young girls, what they really want to do. And this is the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janice, for sharing your story. It's one thing for it to come from the workplace that you're not capable, but for it to come from a parent, you turned that around into something positive and wrote a book that can change many lives downstream. So thank you for that. Wow.
I want to touch on your question a little bit. One of the things I'm looking at as a hiring manager in technology is that all the resumes can kind of look the same. Everybody can get the same certifications. They could have a lot of the same skill sets, but be you. What is it about you that's going to stand out and get you that job? Maybe you have that amazing writing skill. Maybe you got some customer service award. Something that isn't going to be the same as everybody else who's looking for the same job. I think that it's going to help you stand out, and it's what I look for because I'm looking right now. I'm desperate for a desktop support technician. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that unique individual, somebody who's had a little experience doing something that maybe not everybody else has, or has that skill set that's just outside of technology that might help me and my team. So don't be afraid to be you.
She's hiring. Last question before we wrap up and network a little bit more before we leave.
Hi. I work with students, with college students, and a lot of my students have questions about networking because everyone tells them to network, but everyone doesn't necessarily have the playbook for what that means. So would any of you have any suggestions on what it looks like to go through the process of walking into a room, feeling a little bit overwhelmed and intimidating, and walking out with, you know, the quote unquote connections that we're talking about that will lead you to opportunities?
Sure. I've been to many conferences in my life, and when I very early went to conferences, I used to go and look at all the technical sessions, and I'd get some great stuff and information, but I used to walk away with no real networking until I learned that when I walked into a room, if I had a couple of questions ready that I could ask anybody, that would get the conversation rolling, like, where are you from? How long did it get you to travel here? Have you been coming to these conferences regularly? So have a set of questions that you can lead the conversation. Then it's easy. After that, you can do that with the same questions apply to no matter who you meet. That's the way you get to know people. And eventually you'll talk about, well, what do you do at your work? And you'll find similarities or differences. And you start talking about different opinions about how to solve problems. You know, you're in the technical weeds at that point. So have a couple of sets of questions.
I'm on the IT advisory committee for Santa Rosa Junior College, and that question comes up a lot from the students, especially when I speak in the classes. So one thing that I've been able to do with our local HDI board is have meetings up in Santa Rosa and invite the students to come in. And I do exactly what you said. I come up with easy questions that they can ask each other. I help encourage them to talk to one another because it is kind of scary. But it's also easier for them to have a meeting locally where they can network with their peers and ask questions of other students, as well as mentors who may be hiring, because that comes up a lot when I speak. I think it's helpful to, I just lost my train of thought. It's really helpful.
Do your research before the event.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And if somebody answers a question, one of the things I found to be the most useful phrase is, tell me more about that. Just keep going.
I was still a college student last year, so I have a lot of comments on this. I think going to a conference or an event is like, there's so many people, you don't know where to start. So my professor advised us to go on LinkedIn, find a person that you want. If you want to work in Autodesk, find a designer, senior director in Autodesk. Look at their LinkedIn, look at what they write on Medium, look at their profile, have questions for them, send an email saying that I'm a student. people are usually nicer to students. So say that you are students,
That's true.
say that, you know, I am looking, you know, I have this portfolio, like link your website, say that I would love to learn more about what's your day-to-day life. How do you like your work? Can we have a coffee chat? Then make human connection. You never know what connection can bring. You know, people know people, and you never know who can lead you to somewhere someday. And also, there's an app called Shaper, SHAPR. Basically, is Tinder but for professional matching. That has been useful. So yes.
Wow, those are really great nuggets.
I remember what I was going to say. We've had meetings at colleges as well as other places, but having them at the college where it's easier for the students to come to and learn about technology or soft skills and network with their peers as well as people in the industry was also helpful.
And I would like to add, in addition to the students doing their own research to find out who's going to be there, they should also work on themselves. What is your elevator speech? Be ready to answer the question, who are you? What do you do? What's your major? And what do you intend to do with your degree? Those are like questions as a student to keep in mind.
I would say also make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Make sure you have yourself advertised as well, because many of the people you're going to meet at these conventions are potential people for you to connect with and get jobs. And I don't know after how many conventions I've gone to, how many people, you get the notifications of people looking at your profile. There's been a lot of them. So definitely take advantage of social media. It's there for a reason, not just for fun. And people look. So you can advertise yourself well.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us today. And thank you to our amazing panelists. Tour? Oh, okay. Okay. So thank you to our amazing panelists for sharing your stories and experiences. I hope we all took something out of what they said and from the audience as well. We have the gallery space that we talked about earlier. Feel free to walk around. Sheryl right here will give an informal tour of the, yes. I was told that you will. So if you're interested, hang around and she will give you a tour of the gallery. With that, thank you so much for coming and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the day.
For those of you that want to meet me at the back, I'll give you that informal tour.
And please do fill out our survey. You'll get a note from me in the mail.